Namaste. My name's Camilla. I'm the founder of Aqua Kriya Yoga. For the past 20 years, I've been very passionate about teaching yoga in the water to very diverse populations, people who are undergoing surgery, imminent surgery, so prehab, also rehab after the surgery, getting back into the pool, and really older populations that probably would never get a yoga mat out, or even a chair to do yoga. There are a lot of people who are attracted to being in the water for various reasons, and people have been asking me about swimming pools and what's possible in the swimming pools and stuff, and it's quite exciting because over the past 10 years or so I've been traveling, and obviously I've managed to see lots of different swimming pools and explore teaching yoga and practicing yoga in these various pools. So I've just put together a slideshow of some of these pools to perhaps inspire you to look into this for yourself. So let me try to get this PowerPoint up. Okay, so all pools are really not equal, they're not the same. They all have their own little idiosyncrasies and so forth. I think it's just a question of, as a teacher, if we're a yoga teacher or an aquatics professional, how are we going to best utilize the pool for our populations? And, I was always taught to learn to really think outside the box and not be confined. And obviously, when we teach in the water, we're really stepping out of the gravitational field and learning yoga from a different perspective, more from the inside out, really. But anyway, we're going to try to create a little bit more awareness about yoga in the water through this this slideshow, and maybe even start to think about potential students who might be able to finally get to a yoga practice that's suitable for them. Which is very exciting, because yoga really should be accessible to everybody, of course. This is just a dry swimming pool, basically. Different studios have different kinds of props and things, as we know. But essentially, it's a dry swimming pool where the body is subject to the gravitational field, very, very different to the water environment. So just imagine that this room is being filled up and hugged. The whole body is being hugged. This is hydrostatic pressure that helps with blood circulation and so forth. And also there's this property of buoyancy. So gravitational field, everything's going south. Buoyant field, everything is going north. If we want more work muscularly, or to get more kind of bone action, then we move our way through the water and experience resistance and drag. So lots of different props in a good a dry yoga studio, and in the wet yoga studio too, we have a lot of potential props as well to enhance our practice and really the movement of prana, because what it really is about, it's not the shape that you put the body into, it's kind of the prana that you're moving. So it's a pranic model. The shape that we bring the body into is really a pranic model of finding greater equilibrium. So first of all, I mean, we have a very sympathetic environment. Color therapy, of course, is very important, as well as that sensory feeling of being enveloped in this viscous medium. So and they're not always the same color, are they? They can range from green all the way through the spectrums of blues, depending on the type of tiling or vinyl or so forth that's in the pool, and that kind of has an effect upon our mood. But typically that spectrum of blues and greens is very good for pacifying the nervous system. This pool here, it's not a very clear photo, sorry about that, it's quite old, but we're in Sedona here, probably a timeshare property, and a large pool. So this would be, this is mostly a lap swimming pool, but there are usually lots of nooks and crannies, especially when it's a big property with lots of pool acreage, which tends to be a lot of these timeshare kind of environments. They're very sort of aquatic friendly. So there are bigger pools. They might be a little bit cooler because in the desert here, right? So the pool needs to be a little bit more cooling. In this case, you would probably think about it having probably an aerobic component, which is good because a lot of the populations who are preferring to exercise in the water, they're not necessarily getting their aerobics on land, and so we can combine an aerobic element to a yoga practice in the water in this particular instance, and this could accommodate quite a few people. This here at the other end of the spectrum, again, it was a steamy atmosphere. It was an indoor deep sea diving training pool. So it's, I don't know, about 12 foot, I think it was, something like that. Had a little ledge around the end. This was a little women's gathering that we had in a dry and a wet swimming pool, actually. So we had circle time in the dry pool where we kind of show up for one another, talk about maybe something that's on our mind, and create sangha, create community. And then we had candles all the way around, and were drumming the ladies in, and they came and sat down. They had a buoyancy belt on, and we sat at the side of the pool for a while, did a little bit of stretching, centering, and then got into the pool. And so we alternated it. They'd be standing on the ledge to do a few yoga poses, and then in the middle of the pool floating and dancing. So we had lots of music by women, for women, and then come back onto the side again, do some more yoga poses, and then get back and do some more dancing. So it was a really nice women's event. We called it a mermaid event. And so that can be something wonderful that you can offer your community. This was a mineral spa in Nevada, and it was beautiful and warm, and that was a real treat, actually, staying at this place. It wasn't without its interesting features. For example, it was clothing optional, so when we were practicing, there was always a guy who'd come and sit in front of the ladies who had lined up here, usually naked, usually with his legs open, displaying all his wares to everybody. But anyway, such is naturalism sometimes, I suppose. But it was a beautiful pool, and it's different when we're in mineral water. You can feel very profoundly the movement through the digestive system, and yeah, it's there's a difference to the quality of the water and how our body responds to it. This was on the property as well. It was a little meditation pool. So we took the crystal bowl in there, which was delightful, actually. Beautiful medium for sound therapy, with the waves really sort of permeating into the water. So it was very vibrational. It was beautiful. It was a very special place, sort of little windy road, little windy cobbly pathway through the woods. And then you come across this meditation pool, which was beautiful. This is a private pool. Lots of people do have pools in their homes, and they might be interesting shapes, pretty to sort of fit in with the landscaping, but usually there's something that you can do, however confined the space might be. This one has a nice, interesting little ledge here with a bench. This bar here could be used with some straps to do some anchoring restorative poses too. This was a very warm saltwater pool, so this was a beautiful little oasis. This was a wellness center in Minnesota. Again, it's a therapy pool. Difference, you can see the difference in the quality of the water, a little bit more whitish, nice clean kind of color. So this was a very sweet pool. Lots of different areas in this one, so it would have to be very small groups if you were doing small groups, or have little stations, um, like a little circuit, if you like. The floor was different levels as well, so it was a lovely pool, but you would have to do very small groups or one-on-one sessions with clients. Another wellness center. This is an above ground pool in Austin, a Watsu pool. So again, a nice warm therapy pool. The limitations, of course, would be there's not really a deck that goes all the way around. Obviously, you can walk around the pool and see students face to face, even though they're in a different environment than you are. Just proves very interesting. You can see here I'm standing on the steps that lead up to the Watsu pool, and that is the only real above ground kind of teaching platform in that particular environment. So of course that has its challenges. As a teacher, you want to make sure that you're balance yourself and you hang on to something. If balance isn't that great, a very small confined area, but a very intimate area to teach, and especially a more relaxed paced kind of class, dealing with, you know, stress and anxiety, trying to sort of dampen those a little bit, literally, in that warm water. So a very sweet space, but obviously, you know, where you get benefits in some areas, you kind of get challenges. So just a different pool, but certainly teachable. Randolph, New Jersey. So this here, you see the challenge in this pool. A lot of the new YMCAs now, the ones that have been built in the past 20, 30 years or something, they usually have two pools, a lap pool, a cooler pool, or for, you know, for aerobics, and then a smaller therapy pool for people with arthritis and things like that, and physiotherapists to come in and work with clients. And so this was a teacher training that we did, and we had a lot of people in that particular group, and you can see we have that little bar that goes between the two pools, the big lap pool on one side, warmer therapy pool on this side, and so we're having to utilize the space in an interesting way. And of course, students, all different aspects around the pool. In a yoga studio, you're mostly all facing in the same direction. And one area that we have to consider, of course, is how are you going to teach? Where are you going to teach to have that interface with the students and to inspire them? And so that can be a challenge. One thing to note about YMCAs and Jewish community centers and things like that is that there's usually a lifeguard on hand, which is really great, actually. So you don't have to worry about people's well-being in the same way as if you're by yourself and you're working in a therapy pool just one-on-one, in which case you should always have someone close by anyway to act as a second, just for health and safety. So this was an interesting pool in, you know, regards to teaching. And you'll notice here as well, there's a bar in the middle. It can be a hindrance, but there again, it can also be a wonderful prop to use in the middle of the pool. There might be another photograph further on where people are utilizing it in a different way, but it's just really, you know, it's not necessarily going to be that one room where you're just going to be able to organize the props in the same way for everybody. Sometimes you really do have to think a little bit more creatively, and that's what helps us grow, I think, as teachers, as human beings, really learning to solve the problems that we're facing. This hot tubs, of course, can be used, and a lot of people have hot tubs, but don't just think about it as turning the temperature up to 104 or whatever and just sitting in there and relaxing. You can control the temperature a lot easier than a swimming pool. Find that optimum temperature, whatever that is for you, 90, something like that, 92, and do a nice series of yoga poses for self-awareness. You've got the bench around, of course, so you can get the loading of the bones and such. So this was an interesting little pool in Sedona again. Another big facility, timeshare facility in Mexico, and interesting in terms of, okay, if you're going to use the side of the pool to hold on to and such, and you have a few people in the group, how is that going to work? Well, one person is okay. There's a little, not particularly great deck here in terms of utilizing it for yoga, and certainly not over here with the rocks. But just one person, just one-on-one teaching, it was possible to find a space. And this little bridge here, little feature here, well, don't ignore it. Sometimes there can be features like this, or I've even been to one in Singapore that's kind of like a cave, and it has a waterfall and a beautiful cave to meditate in. So this could be great. She's working on retracting her shoulders, shoulder blades down, deepening the groins and trying to sit comfortably on her heels here. And that buoyancy is helping her do that very often. Virasana, Vajrasana can be very difficult for people in the water because of the buoyancy. It just allows you to ease into the pose and hold that optimum position for you, because it can take a long time to figure out how much blanket or cushion you might need under your hips if you're practicing this in a gravitational field. This was a beautiful retreat center south of San Francisco. I taught a few retreats here actually, and been the chef as well. But again, another beautiful saltwater pool with a reasonable length of, this is probably about 3/4 of the breadth of the pool, that we have some steps to utilize as well, which can be very useful for working with small groups. This was again in Sedona, the Hilton. This was the first year, I think, that I taught at the Sedona Yoga Festival, and it was in February, and it was actually snowing. And we started off in the pool. We were talking about, did a workshop, a 2-hour workshop, 1 hour on land, and we were talking about childlike wonder, which really, to my mind, really encapsulates that niyama, shausha, purity. We know we've got to wash the hands, keep clean and such, but usually we get a little bit jaded when we look at our life and experiences and emotionality from when we're a small child to becoming an adult. And, with the mortgage and the kids and the pressures of life, the jobs and stuff, we can lose that sense of childlike wonder. And so even though we were in February, and when I was actually teaching the land workshop, there was huge snow petals, snowflakes falling down. It was just really beautiful. And I said, yeah, we're still going to go in the pool. You're still going to go in the pool. I'm teaching from deck. And they were in there for maybe 15 minutes and laughing and trying to keep warm and stuff. And then luckily we could escape to this beautiful, warm, hot tub. And again, you can see, you're at a different level of if you're teaching on the deck versus being in the water. And initially, it's probably a good idea to teach from the deck. If you're doing a group X class, if you're doing one-on-one yoga therapy, then it's obviously you can be in the pool with the client. But if you're trying to teach a group X class, then they need to see you, especially if they don't know what a yoga pose looks like. And it's different. It's much harder to teach from that perspective, because you don't know how they're feeling in terms of the temperature of the water and stuff. Do they need to get out of the water a little bit more to cool down? Do they need to stand up, ground the femur bones, get a little bit cooler on the upper body, and then submerge into the water? So it just comes with experience, I suppose, really, and feedback from the students to know when they need to cool down, when they need to come out. Obviously, in an environment like this, you're not necessarily going to, an impromptu visit to the hot tub, you're not necessarily going to be able to change the temperature drastically. But we had fun that day teaching in the hot tub. This here was property in Mexico. Again, a lot of these leisure pools can be very interesting. A lot of them have very shallow bits, and then it can go medium and then very, very deep, because people want to, you know, sit and sup their pina coladas and stuff, I suppose, and just stay nice and cool. But a wonderful opportunity to add a little bit more gravity, but not so much that you're stressing areas that you need to be very, very careful of. This particular student did a lot of power yoga, and couldn't do arm balances anymore on land because she'd screwed the cartilage up in her elbows. In the water, she could organize her body a little bit more and get that satisfaction of doing some of the poses that she really enjoyed doing on land, but wasn't going to be in her wheelhouse anymore. Another pool, little tiny little hot tub, getting the boys involved in a little bit of stretching and stuff and mindfulness in the pool. Any opportunity. Of course, yoga is not necessarily about being on a yoga mat or in a yoga studio. It's supposed to be a sort of 24/7 commitment, exploration, I suppose. But yeah, that was a cute little pool. Another pool here, you can see there's a glass divider, 2 rooms. Again, there's a bigger pool on this side, smaller therapy pool. This is very often how a lot of the newer YMCAs are set up. They have 2 pools, and if you're lucky, they'll have a wall, or it'll be a different room entirely, or just this kind of glass screen, which is fine. I have been to one actually that was like a big shower curtain that pulled across, and on the other side of the shower curtain there was a kids playground area in the water, you know, with slides and this, that and the other. It was a dreadful, obviously, design. Whoever thought of that was a dreadful design, but hopefully at some point they will have the wall put there, so you can, who wants to do, you know, a therapeutic session listening to kids screaming and running down the, sliding down the slide and so forth. So this is quite a nice pool because it has it has the bar along the side, and the decking can be very different from pool to pool. So sometimes you're holding onto it, and if you've got arthritis, you're not going to be able to do the same things as everybody else because it's just too cumbersome. So the bar can make it very, very interesting and accessible to people as well. It's just creating a nice community environment, which is important. And it's challenging to do, as you can imagine, if you're teaching up on deck. One of the things about being in the water is, of course, you can only see so much when you're actually in the pool with students. Once you go far enough away, not that far away actually, maybe 6 foot or so, you're not going to be able to necessarily see what's going on underwater. And so you get a great bird's eye view up on the deck, but then you have to try to build that rapport, that relationship with the students on an intimate level. And like before with the Waxu pool, if you're walking around on the ground, maybe the teacher would have to kind of crouch down a little bit and have that dialogue, sort of looking in their eyes, and just narrow the gap between her standing up on deck and then being in the water and down there when she's up there. This is another hot tub in Sedona. Lots and lots of hot tubs and pools everywhere actually, but you know, sort of these holiday destinations, you're going to find a lot of water to play in. And this was rocks surrounding the hot tub, and it just became a nice platform to start working on shoulder stability. And of course, you're in that beautiful surrounding as well, so you're having all of this input through the sense organs to help with the overall effects of your yoga practice. See here, they're utilizing the steps. Wonderful. Kneeling in a swimming pool is much more sympathetic than kneeling on the ground because the weight has been displaced. So lots of things can be approached being in the water. In this particular pose, for example, they've got the arms outstretched. They can push down with the fingertips, lift up through the armpits and hug the biceps in, and really start to create a beautiful feeling of openness and support across the entire shoulder girdle, and deepen the groins by pushing the hips back. So it's kind of in the direction of child pose. Another therapy pool here, and they're using noodles to help cultivate and sustain inner body length. One of the beautiful things about being in the water is Mula and Uddiyana Bandha. When we have, we're coming into a yoga pose like this, where we're really activating the legs and plugging the feet down, we're starting to cultivate inner body brightness, inner body lengthening of the spine. And one of the bugbears as a teacher, a yoga teacher, is in a pose like this, where students, for whatever reason, it's the ego, isn't it? They want to reach down and grab the foot. It's not really that option in the water. So it gives people much better accessibility to moving prana in an efficient way. And in this particular case, probably the best way to hold the noodle would be from underneath. So you get external rotation of the arm and draw the scapula in and down. This is a private pool in the San Jose area. Again, a beautiful low chemical pool, padded bottom. This one has a padded bottom, and it also has a running track around the outside, a walking track around the outside. So it's kind of about, I don't know, about that wide. And then it kind of slopes down a little bit and goes down into a little dip. But a beautiful pool to walk around, walk mindfulness, and then come into the middle. Pool shoes, not an option in a pool like this. So if you have clients that like to wear pool shoes, this is really not going to be in the pool's best interest. So you do need to have bare feet in this particular pool. Again, the depth from the decking to the water is quite significant. It's a little bit cumbersome to hold on to. While it is a beautiful pool in the most stunning environment imaginable, it's, the decking can pose a problem to some people if they have carpal tunnel, arthritis, things like that. But I think it's outweighed by the fact that it's such a beautiful pool in a stunning location. Okay, again, here we have the pool with the glass in between. I think this was another year actually in the same, I think it might be Chicago, can't remember. This is a MD, Nadine Kelly. And yeah, that relationship. A lot of people get, they say, oh, I don't want to wear a bathing suit. I can't possibly wear a bathing suit and let everyone see me in it. But I think the truth is, you look the same. You don't look any bigger in a bathing suit than you do in your normal clothes, I don't think. You just look the same, but with a bathing suit on. But you can cover up more. This was a teaching environment, so just with, teachers, yoga teachers, practicing aqua yoga. So, in that instance, you kind of strip bare all the, your ego and things like that, and what you think you look like, or what other people think that you look like, and all that kind of fear. And people are just quite happy to jump in and out of the pool and do their teaching bit, and it's okay. But you can always cover up. You don't have to wear a bathing suit, obviously. You can wear leisure clothes. One thing to say about this particular area here, the deck is quite slippery actually, and you can see on the other side, I believe, no, actually that might just be the grill. I thought it might be some matting, but I don't think it is actually. No, that's the tile. Good God, I do know my glasses on. Yeah, that's just the tile there, and yeah, the tile on the top. So doesn't look like there's a matting at all. I'm not quite sure what that black line is. Maybe that's a different texture, but certainly teaching on a deck like this with bare feet you would have to be very, very careful. It's very, very easy to slip on a surface like this. So obviously this was a teaching training environment, but normally she would probably wear pool shoes, or you know, exercise kind of shoes, maybe different clothing. If she's not getting in the pool, she doesn't need to wear a bathing suit, obviously. So just some things to consider. I know women in particular, nobody likes their body, but the fact is it's the vehicle of transformation, however it looks. And she looks gorgeous, so she doesn't have to worry. But I'm assuming she's a woman. She probably doesn't feel like she is. But in any case, just to let you know, it's not, you don't have to show up like this to teach. You can wear your street clothes, I did for years, with shoes. But if you're bare feet, as a lot of yogis like to be, of course, then an environment like this is just setting yourself up to slip and fall. This was pool Panama Beach in Florida. So just over that fence was the ocean and the white sandy beach, which was stunning. A relatively small pool, but you know, an interesting symmetrical oblong. A little step area here. We did a few arm balances and things here. Obviously, you can only get 1 or 2 people doing that. It was a nice pool. It was quite, the curve from the wall to the floor was quite a big curve. And so when we're doing things like Warrior One with the toes up the wall, it was just very different to a lot of the pools I'd experienced before. But a pretty little pool, obviously a stunning location. And nice and white so that you can see quite clearly. Notice the darker colours show up underwater. So if you're teaching in the pool, black leggings would be a good idea for people to be able to see you a little bit clearer. This was Vegas Swim Center, and thinking outside the box, you know, what can we do in an area like this? Was kind of the deep end of the pool, where they've got these diving platforms, and so they were doing some work. They were quite, you know, fit and able-bodied students here, so we were exploring and challenging in the deep water. So a great opportunity to do something a little bit different. Another private pool, interesting pool, lots of benches and things around, which can be interesting, lots of different heights in the decking. So this was a sweet pool, different color, more of a concrete base. So just a different energetics, but a sweet pool, the deck, quite difficult. You couldn't even really hold on to it, but you can get the hand placement so you can still work on the shoulders and such, just in a different way. This deck here, you notice, you know, the hand position. If you're going to hold on to the pool, where is the hand going to go? Typically, it's just going to be palm down, but the danger is, if the arm is up here, you're going to be biasing towards internal rotation. And so typically what I would suggest is palm up, jam jar open, which deepens the armpit and draws the shoulder blade down a little bit. So we just have to be careful, because you can see that the deck is going to be higher, the wrist is higher than her shoulder. So palm facing up, thumb pressing down is going to organize the shoulder a little bit more. Failing that, down the wall with the palm of the hand on the wall still and the fingers pointing down. So they have a teacher here just starting to work on a side bend, I think she was doing, but starting off with the palm down, turning the palm up, and then if it's still uncomfortable because of shoulder issues, palm of the hand on the wall with the fingers pointing down. She's demonstrating chair pose here, and you know, demonstration is important, obviously, especially if students have never practiced yoga before, they don't know what the yoga pose is. So demonstrating is a good idea. The surface area here is a little bit rough, but if it was if it got a lot of water, then it would become an issue. And if she's just going through teacher training, so she wouldn't be dressed like that. She would probably wear street clothes and shoes, I would think, on the deck. But it's just for training purposes that she was just dressed like that. So just so you know. This is my local pool. Notice the difference here. We have one of those sort of infinity pools. This is YMCA in Saratoga. And this is a student who is in a wheelchair on land, and was told to get into the water to exercise because she was gaining weight. And in the water, typically we can burn twice as many calories in the same amount of time. And so she was advised to get some aqua exercises. And she didn't really like the aqua. It was sort of loud, boppy music, and not really her at all. And she tried aqua yoga, and she was a great blessing, actually, because very open to suggestions and practice. And she loves yoga in the water and on land, but in the water she can stand. And here we've tethered her to the lane, where the lanes are hooked in. We've tethered her with a yoga strap to get her to work in this reverse triangle pose. The walker, sometimes the facilities will have walkers that clients can take into the pool as well, and it's wonderful, especially for rehab, if they need to get back walking in the water first. It can be very useful for clients. So beautiful way for her to really get some nice rotation and learn how to live and move energy out of her wheelchair. This was another yummy pool, private pool, very big pool, lots of different nooks and crannies, and a little sort of hot tub on the side here. Nice lush surroundings. There was a big bench all along the backside there, and so we did spend some time sitting on there, pushing the sitting on there like a little chair, but pushing the heels into the wall, arms overhead, and creating lots of inner body bright and working the legs quite substantially. So that was interesting. Obviously, they could sit on there and do boat pose as well. So that was a very nice pool. Challenging in a lot of ways because of the little areas and stuff, but for a small group, small gathering, quite nice. Another therapy pool here. Very often you're going to see the ramp so that clients can be wheeled into the swimming pool, and then they come out and they float and they do whatever protocol they're working with at that time, probably Bhadragas or Halawick or something like that. But yeah, the ramps, that's sort of zero entry, can be very useful. And so we wanted to explore all avenues of this particular pool, because the big therapy pools tend to have lots of isolated areas, deeper, shallower, bars, no bars, high walls, things like that, and tons of props, so they can be great fun. So these people are just kind of utilizing the bar. Shavasana, the biggest issue especially for the ladies, is they don't want to get their hair wet. It's a bit of a shame, because when we put our ears underwater, if you've ever tried that, the spanda, the vibration is amazing, and you can really refine your breathing very nicely and do pranayama that way. It's absolutely remarkable. We could have classes, pranayama in the water. I'm sure we could help people more readily to change their inharmonious breathing patterns. But this is a nice therapeutic pillow that a client can kind of wrap around their body, and they've still got, the ears above water. Some people wear hearing aids, obviously, and if they're fearful of floating by themselves, some people are. They come to the water, and yet they're fearful of the water. You can see here she's just kind of put her calves over onto the deck. not ideal for a long period of time. She could have put something under there as well, maybe some noodles under there to stop because at some point you're going to feel like that, like Princess and the Pea. So we have a selection of noodles here. All noodles are not the same. You can get square noodles, I think they're called squoodles, which are very tough in terms of muscular strength that you're going to be used. You can get the little ones from the dollar store that last a season before they get waterlogged and not that great. So you can get lots of different thicknesses. There's a thicker one here, a thinner one. We have these sort of Aqua bells or dumbbells that can be used as well. I'm not really a great fan of them. Most people tend to abuse them, and with the surface tension of the water, bringing the Aqua bells, the dumbbells in and out of the water, because can cause some shoulder issues, and people always go for the wrong size. So that I'm not a particular fan of those, but they can be used. They can be used. Here we are back again, a therapy pool with a bar, this zero entry ramp. So there, we're just utilizing space on both sides. Here she's using a different buoyant equipment. These can be useful actually. You just have to make sure that your hand is right in the middle, because otherwise it's going to kind of veer to the left or to the right. But it might be that that's what you need to do to create a little bit more proprioception and recruit different muscles. It just depends what you're trying to accomplish. But we've used these a little bit actually, and they're quite interesting. This here is another YMCA in Austin. This is another teacher training event. This is a relatively shallow pool actually, and when it's shallower, as long as there's no lower joint issues that you know, you're new out of surgery and stuff, and you're in shallow water, you should be okay. It's just going to increase the muscular load, so it's not quite as relaxing as being in deeper chest height water, but good in terms of working a little bit harder perhaps. So, you know, if the air temperature is okay, and this is a warm area, most areas are, but sometimes they can be that change. You know, the water seems warm, the air temperature seems warm or cold, and that has a difference on whether students want to be out of the water with their body or whether they just want to snuggle underneath. So an interesting pool here. And the challenge, if you're teaching this class, and it might not be that, it might be a non-busy time, because if you have lap swimmers in the other pool, it can be distracting, but not necessarily. Sometimes it's just like, you know, listening to a rower pulling through the water with the oars. It's like white noise, and it's actually quite soothing. But if they were doing, for example, a kids swim lesson, or something like that, where they're all squealing and all the rest of it, that would not be conducive to your yoga class in this nice warm therapy pool. There's something to consider in terms of the timing. An evening class might be nice, you know, before bedtime or something like that, and probably going to be the best night's sleep that they've had in a long time. This was in Georgia, and this actually was a dog aquatic therapy center. So dogs come in with arthritis, they come in on the gurney and stuff, and this remarkable woman works with them in the water, and they get out of pain, and very often they walk out of the pool, and they can be pain-free for a substantial period of time. So this was an interesting pool to work in. But she has some great success with therapy, aquatic therapy for dogs. Another cute little pool, a little bit of shading there as well. But an interesting deck. Hold that you know, you have these posts here which you can hold onto if you're demonstrating a balance. She's being very good at bending her knees, because obviously as a teacher you want to take care of yourself. So she's got a nice flat back as she's squatting to help this student. demonstrations, sort of engaging students. They're talking about doing crow pose. That was the pool where there's a long series of steps along the breadth, the short end of the pool. So she was talking to these students about crow pose, you know, moving in that direction, what it looks like on land, and then helping the girls translate that into the water, which obviously is going to be organizationally a lot easier, at least in terms of getting into the pose. You still have to breathe when you're in it. Here we have, you know, nice, beautiful, open front hip pose here, again, tethered to, anchored to the edge of the pool. And a nice, beautiful expression of just finding that inner body lengthening and surrendering. Different sensation to being on the floor. It's like you're just, well, you're literally floating or flying, and that can be really nice. Obviously, Shavasana, you don't have those little push points into the floor where your body's resting. You're just supported in equilibrium, every part of the body being supported by the water. There's not just those little splotches where, you know, your bum's pushing into the floor and your head and your shoulder blades and stuff. Whole body is just totally supported. So Shavasana in the water is yummy. So yeah, in the pool this time with a small group. Again, a tiny little oasis pool. It's obviously just, you know, more of a leisure pool than an exercise pool, but don't knock it, it's still important. Even a bath, you can do some Porn Muktasana joint opening sequence series in the bath too, which I know Priyananda used to do, and some other people as well I've heard of do that. So we can utilize the noodles and a nice sweet space to work in. This is another above ground Watsu pool. The problem with this particular one, there's not really any opportunity to hold onto the deck other than just had a little bit of light touch. There's going to be no pulling down to lift, or to kind of, you know, come into a pose where you're utilizing the sides and pulling yourself up. So somewhat limited in terms of utilizing the deck, which we can do on pretty much other pools, but nonetheless a lovely warm space to work in. And creating community, of course, is something that's really important in a yoga class. And in the water, I think it seems to create a much sweeter space. Kind of puts us on a level footing all around. It's really quite special in the water. This is just one of those little splash pools on the way into a bigger pool in a, you know, holiday destination. I think it was Mexico. Late in the evening, different kind of lighting, different kind of mood, but working on, you know, the bandhas and pranayama and meditation. And of course, the buoyancy is going to sustain inner body bright and stabilizing that inner body bright for a longer period of time than on land. Here, she's using the noodles to focus on this binding pose, like a little boat. And the interesting thing is that we all have a bias. We're going to pull stronger with one arm than the other, and that's where your boat's going to capsize. And so that's an interesting exercise in seeing, trying to create a little bit more balance with how you're grabbing the ankles, seeing which side is dominant, and trying to stay, you know, symmetrical and not tilt and capsize, which is very easy to do in something like this. But you know, sometimes people like a challenge and a little bit of fun. And so we bring those elements in where it's appropriate too. This is a huge pool in Oregon, and look at that beautiful window, picture window. But as you can imagine, the acoustics were the biggest problem here. And so I've actually got a microphone on, thank God. Otherwise, you could be shouting the instructions, not quite what we want in our yoga practice, but beautiful setting, interesting sort of lazy river kind of setup here, and then another hot tub on the side. So here we were able to practice together for a while. The pool was probably 84, I would think, which is probably the minimum um, that that I would consider for yoga in the water. But then the beauty was was a lovely huge hot tub on the side there. So when we'd finish class, we could pop into the hot tub and do a little bit of chanting. Obviously, the acoustics are going to be superb, and warm up and finish off in our little pod. This was a retreat center, a little private house that I'd rented actually for for an Aqua yoga retreat a couple months ago, which had to be postponed due to COVID, but an opportunity for yoga teachers to have a really nice yoga experience on land and utilizing a pool as well. So you take all these students to exotic locations, and it's just a leisure pool rather than an environment that they can explore yoga in, which is a bit of a shame really. But another pool here, and they're just having a little bit of fun again. So they've got the foot, foot into the sacrum of the person in front. She's got the foot on the wall, and working on stability here, re-stabilizing themselves, creating and sustaining inner body bright. The noodle helps them with that too. So that was just a little bit of fun, which it's nice to do things like this in the water sometimes. This here is a pool. I think this was another one in San Diego. One of the features, it was, like a lot of these leisure pools, are very interesting. And like I say, you just have to think outside the box. But there was a ledge where she could actually hold on to and do this beautiful hamstring stretch and hold onto the deck. And it's beautiful, actually, to be able to do a pose like this. On land, it can be quite challenging. Very often people are going to start to round and dump the tailbone down in the water. And the buoyancy does help to rotate the pelvis more. So she can just focus on anchoring the tailbone down. And, yeah, could do that pose right now, actually. Very nice. Another shallow pool, very often holiday destinations, they have a lot of water around because it affects our mind, of course. It's conducive to relaxation. And so very often you'll find these little gorgeous little pools dotted around the properties with nobody using them. And this can be useful too. So we could play in this little area, especially hip openers and stuff like that. Even some back bends, actually, because obviously up-facing dog is possible here. Another utilizing, this is in Dallas, Plano. This is another substantial step area here that can be utilized. The work here on the supporting leg, it's quite, you can see this looks quite sort of cloudy. It isn't, it's just the steam and everything in the room. It's a beautiful, warm saltwater pool. So the grounding of the foot down in the water, because buoyancy wants you to lift up. Yoga is demanding, the yoga pose is demanding that you anchor down somewhere. And so there's a lot of work lengthening the thigh bone and creating that little tugging at the top of the thigh bone while they're working sort of in the direction of Parsvakonasana, lateral angle, and then Trikonasana. So yeah, that's hard work to be able to keep the foot down. Very often yoga people, land yoga people, when they come into the water and they try, oh my God, I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. It's different. It's different, that's for sure. but it's conducive to relaxation. This was a pool, saltwater pool. It was in Ashland. Actually, it was a yoga festival that I was invited to teach at. The pool was too cold, but it had a big hot tub, and this was a little benched area where we could sit and do some nice work here. This is one of those pools with the bar in the middle, and so there's also a bar all the way around it. Actually, it was a nice therapy pool, kind of small for a large group. These bars can be quite interesting, and there's lots of things that you can do, obviously, like parallel bars if you were to go into the middle and do some stuff, especially upper body strengthening. Another pool here, different textures you notice here. Look at the textures down here. So kind of rough texture, and this is where students who especially diabetics, they're going to need to wear shoes. And some of the things that we do, for example, where you're sliding the foot along the bottom of the pool, might not be possible because it's going to be like a pumice stone underfoot. But you see what's like a student, what are you going to teach the student? Well, something to help them change their form and function and improve that, hopefully. The pool will just offer you different opportunities to try to accomplish that which you're trying to offer to your student. The kickboards here is kind of a nice way to stabilize the shoulders. It's working on chakrasana. And poses like this that might not be quite so accessible on land. I used to do this pose lots. So just pop into it, at will. Not quite so much these days. Can't remember the last time I did it on land, actually, but at a certain point in your life, you weigh up the pros and cons of doing things. And a lot of the poses that I used to do, I don't do anymore on land, but I absolutely can do in the water. And this is one of those. And of course, that buoyancy is helping to sustain length in the back body, which can get very stressed, overstressed, and heavy in a land practice. But people still want to do it because, I'm going to do it. I'm going to prove that I can still do it. Yeah, not much to say about this. Just be careful about the props on the deck. If it's long pull and you're going to need to walk up and down the deck to keep the students engaged, you just want to make sure that safety first. You're not going to fall over and trip. So you just need to be aware of that. Keep everything tidy and make sure that you have a thoroughfare. Obviously, she's in training process, so she hasn't got shoes on and she's got a bathing suit on. Don't look at the photograph and think, she's gorgeous. I don't look like that. It doesn't matter. You don't have to wear a bathing suit. Obviously, you wear what you want to use. You wear shoes because this, of course, is another slippery edge. And achieving that in water, which is not achievable on land, sometimes some of the poses can be really scary, and we need a bit more support. Well, clearly, in the water, she was never able to do this on land, even at the wall on land. But of course, the buoyant properties, hydrostatic pressure, she's managing to sustain enough inner body bright to just get her fingers together for the first time ever. And that's important for some people, okay? We like to set ourselves challenges. The deck can sometimes act as a nice support to create length in the back of the neck. And again, it depends. This one, it's got that little lip over there, but as long as you can get the medulla oblongata over that and it feels comfortable, that's fine. It may not be necessary to bring the feet to the floor. I think in this position, she's probably got her feet on the wall as well, so it's more like a bridge pose or something like that. But again, it depends on how tall you are, whether it's going to be accessible or not. But beautiful way of opening up the pectorals here, and she's able to stay in that pose for a reasonable period of time. Here, the bars are being used to get into the hips and, you know, shift side to side. Another great platform for working in Parsvakonasana, actually, with an assist. There may be a photograph too. But, you know, having a bit of fun together. I know that on land, we don't do that, do we? We just kind of keep in our own little zone. And I've been to many classes on land where, you know, you go into the class, you come out of the class, and no one says anything. You know, there's no communication at all. In the water, barriers can be broken quite nicely. Again, we have our land wheelchair student. We're utilizing her walker again to find Virabhadrasana 3, Warrior 3. And again, able to sustain that pose for a reasonable length of time, and really important for self-empowerment, as well as helping with maybe some weakness in the pelvic floor as well, because a lot of these poses obviously working on pelvic stability. So this is back to the saltwater pool in Plano, using the wall as an anchor point. And then what she's doing here, this is a hobby horse pose, pushing the noodle away, straightening the leg. The foot stays on the wall. If it didn't stay on the wall, she wouldn't be engaging the pelvic floor. The foot's on the wall, so she's engaging the pelvic floor quite nicely. Beautiful, a beautiful little flow there that she's doing. She's added a little bit of an armband here. You know, it's not an armband, it's one of those kids rolly things. She just wanted to check. She had a little bit of shoulder stuff going on, so she was just adding a little bit of weight there, just to increase her introspection. So proprioception increases in the water. Introspection is a yogic protocol that we kind of work towards. We're always inquiring, aren't we? Svadhyaya, tapas. That's self-study and discipline. And she was really getting into her own exploration and putting this little weighted bracelet on to check whether she could get into a certain area, which is pretty cool. You can see here, this is kind of the teacher on the deck, very narrow. You see the deck on this side, on the left-hand side there. Again, reasonably narrow, but doable. The teacher can use the wall as, you know, holding onto the wall. The deck on this side, I think, is slightly narrow as well. So very challenging in terms of how you're going to demonstrate. And for the student, you can imagine, they're down here, she's up here. If she's demonstrating, they're continually looking up. So it may well be that the students need to go away from the wall just while she's explaining what she would like them to do. And then they come to the wall, and she can kind of, so that she doesn't try to what I'm looking for. She's not so much in their presence that they keep wanting to look up. She could kind of walk back over the other side of the deck at this point, and to just observe them doing whatever it is that she wants them to do, just so that they don't feel quite so, they don't feel her presence quite so closely. And what do students want to do? They always want to look at the teacher, so they're just going to be continually looking up. This is a pregnant girl getting a sound healing. Playing the bowl in the water is challenging because, you know, you're not, the bowl isn't down here in the way that it could be. So bringing the elbow up here, it's probably the best way to do it for your own health and safety. Down here, you're not going to be able to get around the bowl in the same way. It won't create that same, it won't be that same smooth action. So you just have to practice that, and maybe have a smaller bowl if the big crystal bowls don't work for you. But the sound healings in the water can be really nice. This was a cool aquatic center. And you know, they're having fun. We were doing some warming up, and then creating this beautiful lotus towards the end of the class. After we did some warming up, we did some yoga poses, and then we created this this sangha pod together, which is really nice. Again, it's not so much what poses you've taught your students. It's about how they feel when they leave class, and they should feel better than when they arrived. Pranayama, this is me when I was very young, snorkeling under the water. Now I have a full face mask without the thing that you put, without that piece in your mouth that's really irritating. Just the full face mask with the outlet on the top. Fantastic way to practice pranayama. This is another center. This, I think, is in Chicago again. This is the main pool, and then a little therapy pool with steps so that they can work on breathing, and some other postures. She's working on chaturanga here, which is a very difficult pose on land. And I've seen a lot of students come to the water to heal because on land they've done too many chaturangas and screwed their shoulders up. So here she's kind of floating forwards a little bit more, practicing floating forwards and then bending the elbows, rather than, as the tendency can be, to just dump the shoulders down, of course, and that's where people are going to see lots of rotator cuff issues. This is a pool in Singapore, again, massive space for water features, which nobody uses. There's not really, in Singapore, there's not really that much that people do in the water, actually. They don't even do really aerobics much. I think maybe there's a couple of clubs that do a little bit. I think there is a center. There is one teacher who's got a yoga school, an aquatic yoga school there, but pretty much the island pools are underutilized, so great opportunity. And what you can notice here is those little squares, individual squares of tiling. So again, the slip and slide with the feet, if you wanted to do that for any reason, and we did with these actually, but I don't think I've got the video to show you here, but yeah, can be useful. And seated postures, typically not for beginners on land, because you know, tight hips, tight back, tight hamstrings, those types of things. But in the water, they've got a little bit more opportunity to work on rotating the pelvis so that they can sit upright, and then hopefully translate that to land as well. Okay, and I think that is it. Nope, that was a blank one. Hold on. Ah, this is my community pool, and there are lots of pools for in senior centres, in senior communities across the world. And this is a sweet little pool that we have. This is my next door neighbour, who would never have tried yoga at all, would it for the fact that he was asking me what I was doing, why he was driving me to the airport so much, and where I was going, what I was doing. And he asked if he could come and try it. So we worked with him, and he's been able to move his body in a way that he hasn't done for a very long time. And he's also been doing some stuff on land too. So wonderful opportunity. If it's not possible on land, it may just be possible in the water. And you notice he's got his shoes on, which is very, very good. He's diabetic. And so that's good protocol for him, because even though they might be safe in the pool, this surface is quite smooth actually. It's getting into and out of the pool, or getting out of in particular, when the body's wet and the floor might be slippery. That's going to be the danger point for them. This is another pool in a gorgeous spa in Florida. Just kind of standard shape, fairly narrow. Here we're working on vinyasa. A vinyasa sequence was great for focus and concentration, and to, in the same way as I Chi, which is a protocol in the water, the fourth most popular therapeutic protocol in aquatic therapy. The same way, you know, vinyasa yoga is very similar, working on the meridians of the body, focus and concentration. This is a great, nice, warm saltwater pool to practice that. Meditation, of course, as well, in the water. Why not? very often, if you know, we want to meditate, the body tells us something different. You know, there's a little ache and pain that that we can feel, and all of a sudden it's not meditation anymore. It's a battle of will. So being in the water, we can effortlessly sit upright, and it can be a very, very nice place to meditate. A pose like lotus. Very often people will do lotus and they'll just do one side, and they'll do one side all the time. And practicing it, she's practicing this holding onto the wall with her knees on the wall, and gives you some great insight into how imbalanced your pelvis is actually. So it was a really nice reference for lotus, and feeling that energy moving in and up along with the buoyancy. So not a pose for everybody, obviously. Another pose that has gone down the tubes, but that's okay. Oh, here we have just the other side of the deck. You'd seen this one before, and look, you've got that ledge on the bottom here, that little bench as well. A nice big private pool. Lots of limitations though in terms of holding onto the deck, and so that that would just define how you approach your practice. Most of the people you notice are holding onto the bench here rather than up here. And this here was a beautiful. She was 84 when she came to yoga. Actually, Aqua yoga was the first thing, and beautiful student. You never know who's going to be attracted to yoga at any stage in their life, and I asked her why she wanted to do yoga, why she wanted to train, and she said, I want to, you know, improve my life and prepare to die. I thought that blew my mind actually. And so people who think that yoga in the water is somehow lesser than yoga on land, I don't get it. It's just sheer ignorance. People who obviously don't like the water or have never practiced in the water. We're in a physical body, we're trying to move prana. It doesn't matter whether you do it on land or in the water, you do it where you find you can move the most prana and you're the happiest and most content. And not everybody wants to practice on land or would ever practice on land. She was attracted to the water. She'd heard about what yoga could do, and that was her reason for joining. I thought that was beautiful. This is where I should be in a few weeks. A beautiful bed and breakfast. Shout out to Grandview and Gwendolyn in Mount Dora, Florida. Beautiful saltwater pool, bed and breakfast, exquisite little place. You can walk into town. So just a shout out for this lovely pool. We did teacher training here a couple of years ago, and we're scheduled to go back next month, but not now, although there will be some students there teaching, utilizing the pool and doing the training online. But a sweet little space, and there are many places around the world like this that would be very appropriate for having a little workshop, a training event, a retreat, personal practice, personal retreat, those kinds of things. And again, you've got the you know, some posts. You need to make sure that you're safe when you're teaching, and there are different aspects of adjustments and things that are appropriate from above to below, but you just need to be careful of your back, of course, and that you don't fall into the pool. I fell into the pool once actually. I stepped into the pool. I was trying to explain something to a student, and she didn't hear me or didn't understand, and I just stepped in, and it was quite delicately done. I thought I just stepped into the pool. Luckily, it was sort of about waist height, and managed to hold my phone up out of the water and continue instructing her, and then just walked out. But anyway, that's the only time I've done it, thank God. Here we're doing level 2, which is the more advanced, more intense training. Level 2, Aqua Yoga Specialist. Here again, we're using yoga straps tethered to those eyelets for the lanes. Another bench press system up here where we're working on, you know, upper body strengthening and stuff, and still creating inner body bright. And for those who are, you know, into Ayurveda and some of those therapeutic practices like Shirodhara, it's such a pain in the bum on land when you've got all that, you know, you've got to get all your materials together, and then you've got all that oil that's got to be cleaned up and all the equipment. It's a divine practice. But in the water, it's a lot easier. You know, you just, you know, if you've got a warm pool, you just putting warm water in a bowl. This is just a punched hole through a copper bowl, suspended from, I think it was a basketball net actually was suspended it from there to do this practice. Beautiful practice. Here, it's a hydro rider band. This is something that I've been trying out for ATRI, the Aquatic Therapy and Research Institute. Very nice, comfortable band actually. The yoga straps are nice, but this one, but it's kind of pull. There's not really that same isometric action as with this band. I really like it, and so it's got little eyelets as well, little chains where you can pop it in and put it around your wrist or your hand or your foot, which gives you a lot of options, of course, rather than just grabbing the strap. A lot of people grab it and white knuckle it, and it's not particularly good for your wrists. This is a gorgeous, really pure therapy pool. The floor goes up and down. There's cameras underneath as well, so you can see what's doing, but a beautiful therapeutic pool. Obviously, you're just going to be able to work with 1 or 2 clients at a time. But certainly in the therapeutic field, this would be fantastic. It also has a treadmill in there too. In this pool, this was in Phoenix, another therapy pool. She's working with weights. Obviously, we have buoyancy of the water, and sometimes we want to load muscles in a different way, and so we can also use weights rather than the additional buoyancy, depending on what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And sitting, you know, with back against the wall, you notice her pelvis is moved away slightly. It looks like sometimes it could be the diffraction, so it's a bit of a fake news thing. But working in a seated position, you know, in the water, it's great because pressing the tailbone into the water to create that pelvic rotation can be really cool. So very nicely, you notice we have a little lift area here. This is where if someone was in a wheelchair, they'd go down in this apparatus, and then the door opens and the therapist can come and work with them that way. Or there's of course the steps here too. Yeah, you've seen this one before. Just a beautiful setting, okay? Just a beautiful, beautiful setting. We're watching hawks fly by, hummingbirds, dragonflies, listening to beautiful music, smelling the scent of jasmine and honeysuckle, and it's just delightful. And so yeah, not just an indoor room, somewhere that's really getting you back in nature and helping that overall feeling of wellness. So this is just an underwater photograph just to kind of show you hydrostatic pressure. It's like you're vacuum sealing something and want to put it in the freezer. You know, the whole body is being supported. So it's that entire lymphatic massage, which is very, very important for all of us. So we get so many additional little gems by being immersed in the water. And Dr. Bruce Becker has been doing some work here with Alzheimer's, for example, and warm water immersion is supposed to reverse the symptoms of Alzheimer's. So he'd been working with a gentleman who barely recognized his family on land, gets them into the water. He can follow instructions very well, have a laugh, and recognize his family and have a conversation because of the cerebral blood flow in immersion, warm water immersion in particular. Here we're going back to Parsvakonasana. These yoga teachers are just working in a different way. It's three-dimensional, obviously, in the water, whereas as on land, where it's sort of more two-dimensional. Here we have the pole of truth. So, you know, we still need to make sure that we're opening that front of the hip without damaging the lower limbs. And so this pole, this has just probably got a brush on the end or a net, just utilizing something that's already at a swim facility. He's actually, this is the, they're doing Happy Baby here. This was a pool in Houston. He's holding on to, this is the lifeguards tower. And that's all well and good, as long as it's fixed to the floor. So if you're going to utilize something like that and hang off an piece of equipment like that, you just need to make sure that you're going to be safe. There we go. This is one of the huge pools in Singapore. So this whole, all the way through the community, different pools, deep, shallow, a bridge, little cave with you know, water pounding through. So great spots, little sort of jet area with jets. The pool temperature tends to be kind of cool because it's very, very hot there. And I suppose because, well, they don't really need to heat it up and nobody uses it much. But anyway, I'm sure it's going to get a lot more, it's going to get a lot busier in Singapore, especially now that they have some yoga teachers teaching aqua yoga there and doing a great job. So here you have kind of a busy pool, and won't see a pool like this year, that's for sure. This is a pool I'm teaching in at the moment, but we only have 6 or 8 people maximum, and using the pool with the, you know, the hand on, or they're having their own designated space. So obviously you don't want people floating around the pool, because then, especially at this time, they're getting too close. So if you are using the pool during COVID, then you need to make sure, obviously, that people are 6 feet apart. And we're not using noodles, we're not using any props apart from some TheraBands that I take, and they're submerged in the water before they pick them up, and then before I pick them up at the end. So, but we're not using noodles or anything like that. And in this pool, there's maybe 6, 8 maximum in the pool at any one time. And people have their own space by the wall. We're using the wall a lot, holding on to the decking and stuff. And it's working out really nicely, actually. The temperature of the pool, the weather, the music, it's really very, very special. This was taken some years ago. Here she's practicing, obviously, another on balance at the deck, at the steps that she would never be able to do on land. Another aspect of that little oasis pool here, so you can see how challenging the pool is to get people in. But for small groups, private one-on-one sessions, very, very nice. And for, you know, relaxation, Shavasana, Yoga Nidra, there's no reason why you can't do Yoga Nidra with you in the pool with them, obviously. You know, you just hands underneath, you don't even need to touch them. If you've got Reiki training, then obviously that can be another element that you can add to the experience for your students. This here's a sound healing. We did a chakra sound healing workshop at this beautiful saltwater pool, and this couple who used to live in the yoga community that I was in for 10 years. They had sound healings, and she'd worked with crystal bowls and all types of bowls, actually, and her husband had God knows how many didgeridoos, and this is a crystal didgeridoo. So this was pretty much off the chart. By the time we'd finished the sound healing with all those bowls, there were lots of bowls in the pool, actually, probably 20 or so bowls in the pool. It was pretty fantastic. These go back to these dumbbells again, and using them like that to kind of, the shoulder stability is great. But as I mentioned before, in and out of the water is going to help jar the shoulder because of the surface water tension. But they can be utilized to create that block kind of feel, you know, where you're just trying to get the shoulder blades in and down. So, you know, but that was all they had. They didn't have anything else. Maybe a couple of noodles, and that was it. So you just look and see what's there, decide what you need to do for your students, and get on with it. Here she's teaching at the shorter edge of the deck and having people going back. It's the same height, I think, the same depth, I mean, all through that pool, I believe. But if it was, say, like 4 feet at the front where she's teaching, and then it went back to 6 foot, it would give you an opportunity to sort of do that, you know, Von Trapp thing, you know, like Sound of Music, and just stagger it. So the shorter people are at the front and the taller people go to the back. But I believe this pool is this, I think it's 4 foot all the way around actually. And yeah, you can see it's kind of 4 foot on this side too. But if it's a small pool, and there's quite a lot of people, you'll notice that they're in different directions. So to teach it, you would have to cover the deck quite a lot, making sure that you engage with everybody. Yeah, she's up here, they're down here, and you have to learn to bridge, to narrow that gap so that you can connect with students. This here was a very fancy schmancy club in the Bay Area, very expensive swim and racket club, and they turned the temperature up every full moon so that we could do full moon yoga. And so from this side of the pool, we kind of finished off the evening, we'd be over this side and look up and you see the moon. And full moon, women in particular, although we did have some men coming to this event as well, sort of tuning into their feminine energy. Full moon and women and yoga, really, really powerful, and great night's sleep afterwards. At the moment, of course, because of COVID, teacher training is online, both with Aqua Yoga certification and the workshops I'm doing through the Aquatic Therapy and Rehab Institute. So there's 2 levels of teacher training, level 1 and level 2. And then workshops will be panning out as well, probably putting them on my website in the near future in different aspects of aquatic yoga therapy. So yeah, any pool is an opportunity. Any pool is an opportunity to get people moving and to improve their health. So when is it the right time? You know, you could say, well, if I had a pool that had, you know, the bars in there, if I had all the props that I wanted to, if it was the right temperature, it would all be fantastic. And you can wait a lifetime to get everything in perfectly just the way that you want it. And then maybe you're not inspired to do it anymore. So get in the pool and practice. It's a great way of moving the body, moving prana, and being out, especially if you've got an outdoor pool. It can be really lovely to get out in nature and do that. So hope that's inspired you a little bit to want to get out there and enjoy yoga in a different environment. Deepa Shantis, namaste.